Okay, we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CRID Webinar Series, session number 29, the Center for Research and Innovation and Design. Today's seminar session is titled About Tomorrow, a conversation about the development in the regions. And our guest speaker today is Luca Vigliero, Design Director of KEO International. My name is Mohammed Balila, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. A brief introduction about our guest speaker for today. Luca Villero has a broad international portfolio of more than 17 years, working on unique developments and destinations around the world. Luca has honed his design and project quality management expertise at award-winning architecture firms. His experience consists of master plans, mixed-use developments, cultural and exhibitions, residential, hospitality, commercial and public buildings. Luca advocates and promotes a design approach to create holistic architecture by designing buildings as response to their context in its multiple facets, urban, social, cultural, and environmental. His professional collaborations across different firms allowed him to mature a sure management of the design process. His approach aims to create spaces and buildings that are inclusive of their place and time and expressive of their brief and client aspirations. Specializing in concept design and early design phases, he strives to bring a dynamic approach to the teams that he leads. He has been managing large, multidisciplinary, global teams and complex design processes that focus on conceptualizing solutions, challenging client briefs, and delivering outstanding architecture of the highest industry standards throughout the MENA, Europe, Asia, and the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Mr. Luca Vigliero. Luca, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Professor George. Good afternoon, everyone.
Luca, sorry, one thing I forgot to mention regarding the Q&A. Please, if you have any questions, sorry. Luca, you'll forgive me. I'll owe you lunch. If you have any questions, please, for our guest
always
speaker,
forget
for
to.
Luca, please write them in the chat or DM me personally so that we can address them at the end of today's discussion. Thank you, Luca. Sorry, I'll be quiet now.
No worries. Well, thank you, Wolf. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a really pleasure to be here. I'm starting to share my screen. Okay, that one and this one. And I put in a full screen manner. Okay, I hope everybody can see. So
yes,
again,
it's full and clear.
Fantastic. So thank you again. So this is a very quick lecture about basically myself. I'm going to tell you a story about, let's say, myself in order to explain you a little bit about my vision for the design and architecture for tomorrow, especially in the region. But before starting to talk about tomorrow, I would like to talk to you about my past. I do believe it's interesting, not because it's myself, but because I had a really kind of interesting journey across different offices and different countries, which at the end makes myself, you know, I would say, ready to be a designer. So let me start quickly. So I study at the Faculty of Architecture in Geneva, and I complete part of my study also in Vienna at the University of Technology. Those two moments are very, very critical in my career, which I realized actually after a couple of years, I would say. The Faculty of Architecture of Genoa, it's very conservative in a way. It's one of the best in Italy, I would say, but it's very conservative in a matter they're gonna teach architecture. Vice versa, the University of Technology in Vienna, it's very, very innovative. So, and these two components that make, let's say, my mind blowing up and work in a very open and innovative manner. So at the beginning of my career, I was full in love for graphic design. And graphic design was really like my tools and my manner in order to explore architecture. This is my thesis at the end of my 5 years graduation. And it was basically a very conceptual idea to prepare and design small software which can generate architecture. So the name of my degree was like pattern architecture, and the idea was really to create architecture out of basically parametric architecture done by graphic designer. So that was very, very interesting and cool in a way. As you can see, this was one of the application. I create a kind of club in a way, disco club, where graphic and functional will met together. As I said, I was really in love for graphic design. So my early my early work was better as a graphic designer. I work on a kind of animation as a graphic designer for several competitions, and this was an MTV commercial that has been run in MTV on the early 2010. I also participated in different competition for graphic, and this is, for example, was a funny competition for snowboard for Salomon. So the point of this one was basically to understand that my starting point was quite unusual. I really start my career as a graphic designer, and then I moved towards architecture. This is the cover, and I think it's interesting to show you the cover of my first portfolio. This is it was very not architectural, but with this kind of manner and this kind of portfolio, I prepare myself and I present my work to OMA, where it was basically my first office. So I was super lucky. I moved to Rotterdam and I work mainly on 2 projects. This is the larger mixed-use tower in Rotterdam. It's as you can see, as I said, it's a mixed use. It's basically residential, office, and hotel. That was an amazing opportunity, as you can understand, to challenge myself in a very international design firm in a different manner, and using tools that I never used before, which is the model making. Those models, as you can see, are done in a very professional way and has been done by myself in this amazing environment. The second project I have worked was the Museum of Fundacion Prada in Milan. As you understand, the challenge was huge. The client was very ambitious, but let's say the methodology and the design workflow was absolutely outstanding. I was responsible mainly for the tower, which is a storage exhibition tower. This is, of course, has been built in Milan, as you can see. And what was absolutely outstanding, and I really recommend you to try it, to work in and have an experience in one of those large international design firms, is the methodology and how you approach to the work. There is no boundary. There is no straight way to achieve a design solution. And that's why at the beginning I was telling you that my career started as a graphic, because there is no one way to achieve, a nice project or nice solution for our clients. So in that manner, in that slide, you can see how many tools we have used: physical model, collage, diagram, illustration. So I'm just trying to tell you that design can have different door and can be done in a different manner. And this is really the proof of myself in a way, because I will show you now. So during my 17 years, I worked for several offices, several companies in several countries, which with really different identity. I worked for pure design firm like OMA, like Massimiliano Fuxas in Rome, and then I worked for corporate offices like RMJM, RMJM, Perkins & Will, and currently in Chaos. So these two, let's say, these two group of way to do architecture or to do design are completely different. And having this kind of bipolar experience makes my experience and my knowledge in design stronger and most of all flexible. So this is something very important for you guys in the future. Be flexible, because we are moving in a direction of design that there is not just one solution. So be flexible, try to understand different way to achieve your design solution. Just try to understand to manage with different clients with different ideas. So resiliency and flexibility is something that absolutely critical in your future. And this is, of course, only my opinion. There is something else, which again, be part of this idea of being flexible, that I understood later on in my career that I was reacting basically to the global turbulence. So I moved from one city to another city, to one office to another office, just for needs. So that one somehow makes, as I said before, my experience more stronger, more open, and more various. So don't be scared after your university to move on, to try different experience, to try different office, different country, because this is the way you're gonna become more stronger in terms of design and also in methodology in your work. Here I have just a list of slides which will show you the project I have been work. I hope it's not too boring. So this is with Massimiliano Fuxas. It's an auditorium, an exhibition hall in Tbilisi, in Georgia. As you can see, the shape, it's really, really formal in a way, which is something that doesn't belong to my idea of design and composition. But because I was working with Fuxas, which is very used to this kind of artistic gesture, this has become also, you know, part of my understanding on design. So the idea is, as you can see, this is the auditorium building. This is the exhibition. You can see the structure and the envelope. It's really complicated and really challenging. So it was really hard for myself, or really complicated to myself to dig inside this shape. But then at the end was an amazing experience, which gave me a lot of learn about it. That's another project done with Massimiliano Fuxas in Rome. It's really like 2 kilometers away from the project I have shown you before. It's an office building. And the idea here from his point of view was to create a beautiful flower with those beautiful leaves on top. So as you understand, this is the beautiful roof. And then inside there is those simple boxes which host basically offices, public office for the city of Tbilisi. There is something really interesting that I learned working from Fuxas, that he always, which I'm not sure you know him, if not, please go on your website, his website, and learn about him, that he always refer his architecture to Rome and the grandness of Rome. So particularly on that one, he was inspired by the Colosseum. So the idea was to create something really, really timeless in the city of Tbilisi. And I do believe he did it quite well. Next project, it's something I did it with when I was in Genoa, which is my hometown. It's a competition for a mixed-use development next to the sea. The idea here was to create a really new, innovative area and mixed-use area in the city of Genoa next to the harbor. The program was quite challenged. The idea was to put, like, most of the area was dedicated to residential for elder people, a kind of iconic hotel on that side, and then basically a residential area for young students related to the university, and of course a beautiful marina with a beautiful promenade, shops, and so on. So we won this competition, but of course Renzo Piano came over and took the competition and finished the competition also. So now it's under construction under his name, of course. So this is another interesting competition. It's really small, but I really like the main idea, which again, this is prove you how the idea can come from really different way and not just from one way. So the main idea here was, it's an island in Venice, and there is an existing urban fabric, which was like beautiful building from the 1500 century in Venice. So the main idea here was to use a spine, which we call the boulevard, and then basically mirror all those buildings in the same manner and just change the shape and the facade and the color of the architecture. So we basically make a very graphic, if you think about a gesture, because we just mirror as you do in AutoCAD, and then we create this beautiful communal space which is gonna enhance the public life for this university. And of course, we put some auditorium, we put some cafeteria, so it became a beautiful, simple university campus with just one idea, just one simple gesture idea. And then we add an iconic library here in order to emphasize the arrival of the people with the vaporetto, with a small boat. That's another competition. As you can see, I did a lot of competition, which is not sure it's a good idea, to be honest, in a career, but this is what happened to me. That was a kind of hyper mixed-use visionary tower in New York. And the idea here was to show basically the future of our city. I'm really thinking that in the future, mixed use will lead our city. So in that design proposal, basically the idea was to provoke the idea that everything happens in such a small plot. So we have residential on top, we have a kind of open garden on the second level, we have a kind of fish pool where people pretend to, to have like a aquaponic situation. We have a kind of vertical farm where we can create like, vegetables and whatever is required for the tower. And of course, all those product food will be sold in a kind of retail commercial area. So basically the entire development works as a 0 kilometer development, which is definitely something that we are moving towards, especially in mega city like Dubai or Asian city. This is a kind of serious project, I would say. It's a hospital in Gonesse in Paris. I was not part of the design team, but I was working on the shop drawings. And when I say shop drawings, I was designing every single element of that facade. Again, this is completely far away from what I studied and what I learned in a way, but was absolutely amazing study all those elements facade in such a detail, almost in scale 1:1, and give me a really strong understanding and knowledge about how to build, which I have used, of course, in my next projects. This is another, well, actually, this is interesting. This is a project, an exhibition. I have worked together with ex-architects. I do believe here in Dubai. It was basically the Kuwait Pavilion at the Venice Biennale in 2016. And the idea was basically my idea was to celebrate the value of the golf. And we basically did a huge research about the golf in terms of pollution, in terms of sustainable opportunity. And we came out with a very interesting idea that the golf could be the place where basically all the GCC country can work together in order to emphasize the importance of the area. It was very conceptual, but really well received during the exhibition. Here, this is all those projects I will show you now are done with Perkins & Will. This is done in 2016. I was senior associate design lead in Perkins & Will here in Dubai, and we ran many competition. Perkins & Will, I think it's a very interesting entity in the marketing. It's definitely a corporate. I do believe it's the second corporate as a size and as a revenue in the world, but they really work as a design boutique firm. They are very dedicated to the design, and they make really beautiful projects, especially in States. This one is a competition we did in Yas Island. It's an mixed-use office campus. And I just want to show you what was the main idea here. So we had a huge avenue here with a lot of cars, a lot of traffic, and our plots was basically divided in two by this road. So in order to create a kind of physical and visual connection, we create a huge canopy, which is the idea of a plaza, but in a very stretched way. And then against this plaza, and again this big boulevard, we create courtyard where people basically can spend time, and it's basically a public space and facility. This is somehow the render. So that one is the main road with a lot of traffic also on that side. And then this is our canopy, which will become also kind of benchmark and feature when you drive in. And then, as you can see, you can enjoy all the courtyard in between the building. So the idea here was to create a kind of public space in order to respond to the city in a way, but on the other matter, to try to create a semi-private space for the people that work during the day. This is one of the courtyard. You can see it's very relaxed, very simple. We introduce water, we introduce power. We try to create this idea Wadi, but in a very contemporary and fresh way. This is another competition. This is here in Dubai, next to the Jabil Museum. The idea here was very, very simple. We were looking to create something very natural because the environment, you can see there is a lot of build, there is a lot of construction. So we decide to work with the terrain, and we basically really peel out piece of terrain, and we create beautiful ramp, which become again a kind of vertical plaza where people can spend time, people can create, could be an exhibition center, it could be an exhibition space, could be a concert space, and then the rest of the program will be under this simple movement. This is professional render. This is a physical model we create in-house. I would recommend you guys in the future to work always with physical model together with your 3D model. I'm sure all of you now are like master of SketchUp, Rhino, Revit, whatever, but don't forget that having a physical model, first of all, is going to help yourself to design in a proper way and in a better way, but also your client will appreciate a lot during a presentation to come with a physical model, put on the table and just describe the project with your hands, moving around, touching some people. So I'm really having a huge advantage when I go in any client meeting and bring a physical model. The way they react to the project is completely different than looking at a screen or some rendering. So I really recommend you guys to work with model in your future career. That was one of the most crazy, insane competition we have done in Perkins and Will. I do believe you are familiar with the space. It's in Sadinat Island. It's probably one of the most relevant and high class plot in the entire Abu Dhabi. It's next to the Louvre, next to the Guggenheim, next to the Zaidi Museum, and behind we have the Foster Historical Museum of Emirates. Here was the demand of the client was to have a mixed-use development, and we create something very unique. And it's probably so unique that we dramatically lost the competition because it was probably too innovative and not enough commercial. So that's why I'm telling you that working for a corporate and working for design firm, there is a huge difference in a way. When you work on a design firm, pure design firm, you work more with a strong statement, which basically belongs to the identity of the design firm. And I'm referring, for example, to OMA, Big, Fuxas, Foster, all those kind of offices. When you work on a corporate, it's more like talking with the client, working together with the client, reacting in a more way to the commercial side of the client. So in that manner, as you can see, here we had really like a simple gesture. It was a very democratic gesture. We decided that everybody here deserves a beautiful views towards the museum. And that's why we create a very, very simple gesture, which is basically a circle. And we create a kind of democratic architecture. Then we create those simple tower, which is hotel and resident. And then in the middle, we create this beautiful oasis, which I will show you now. That's the site plan. As you can see, there is no back in this project. Everybody has basically a completely 360 view across all the site. And in the middle, we create this amazing Garden of Eden, which was like designed in a way that there was water, there was like, animals and so on. Also, the challenge was that everything was built in a kind of hill situation where we have all the parking for all those residential. So as you can see, it was a huge challenge, and it was, to be honest with you, was not really, really well received from the client, but it was an amazing journey. I actually spent 2 weeks on our Miami Perkins Will office to design this building, working with the high top design level in Perkins. But again, the client was looking for something more commercial. Please check in Google, you will see the current proposal in place. As you can see, there was a huge effort. Despite the huge investment on renderings, we have worked also in several models. This one was a section of the entire circle. As you can see, we have retail. We have a beautiful gallery. We have retail with beautiful view towards that one was the internal garden. And then we have all the residential and the iconic tower with the hotel. So it was really, really well done, but as I said, not really well received. That one was another insane competition, amazing, one of probably the best I did it in my career. You definitely recognize the area, and the client request was to establish almost 5 million square meter of hotel, hospitality, retail, and mixed use in that area here. So the challenge was huge. Of course, not really. I mean, first of all, because 5 million square meter, it's not a joke, but because we were facing the most important site for the entire Muslim community. So it was a huge challenge. And the main idea was, well, you're more familiar than me. The main idea was basically to recreate this sense of openness that the Kaaba, of course, provide, everywhere, and somehow the Haram mosque has been designed in this direction in order to catch the flow of people and openness. So in a way, we were trying to imitate this kind of movement, which is a similar circular, also somehow in the elevation. So we have designed the towers, because of course for 5 million square meter, we have to design towers. We were trying to be inspired by the same movement, also in a kind of elevation. And also we were getting inspired by the moon and the process of the moon. So we were trying to use the same shape. Also the huge challenge, which is not visible from the road, it was the infrastructure below, under the mountain in front of the mosque. There is a huge system of tunnel, as you can see. One for the metro, there is a several for car, and then there is a kind of escape tunnel, which makes all that area almost impossible to design and put our foundation. So it was a huge challenge to try to locate all those square meters in a place that basically was not welcome for buildings. That was very amazing. It's a competition that I think went on for 3 or 4 times, and it's still ongoing. This one was one of the internal roads. The architecture, as you can see here, it's a softer. It's related to the Muslim culture, to the Islamic culture. We had some high-rise building, but treated in a very simple and elegant manner. And of course, a huge road, huge plaza in order to host the pilgrims during the pilgrimage. Again, related to Mecca, that's one of my preferred projects I participate. I did it together with ex-architects. Again, one more time. This is it's an art exhibition in Copenhagen on the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art in Copenhagen. And the overall title of the exhibition was Arabic Contemporary. So to make it short, the idea here was to show the crownness and the beauty and the amazing journey that every pilgrim does in Mecca once in the life. So this is a huge poster, which I did it. I think if I'm not mistaken, this is like 6 meter by 2.5 meter. And it has been built in Photoshop by buying basically picture from a professional photographer, Saudi photographer. And I basically crop every single image and I create this huge poster, which represents basically one day in Mecca in a way. Beside that one, of course, beside this huge poster, we also create other collage. This one was a very provocative graphic in a way. And again, here the graphic design coming back, because all those images, all those elements has been done in Illustrator. So in a very graphic way. And this collage, it's very provocative in a way, because it somehow tell a story about how Mecca is moving towards with those huge tower, losing this minimal feeling of human scale, which is definitely, it's part of the journey of Mecca when you visit the Kaaba. So it was really, really well received. We're still receiving, a lot of good feedback from this exhibition. Staying in Saudi Arabia, that's a mixed-use development next to the sea, on the Red Sea. It's huge mixed-use development. The client was looking for an interesting marina place, which we designed in this manner, and then basically a carpet pattern of residential for Saudi people. So what we designed basically was we create a beautiful promenade, like I'm sure you're familiar with La Mer. We create a restaurant, hotel, mall with a cinema center, and all of those was joined by a simple like retail, F&B, entertainment outlets. Behind we have a very large marina, again with residential, retail, F&B, and outlet, and then an iconic tower at the end. And then the rest was just G+5, G+6 residential units and villas. It was funny because the land was without water. So we have proposed to a client to create a marina as here in Dubai. And then we create a loop canal basically in order to bring more value in the land. As you appreciate, the main value here, it's basically that one. But the moment you're gonna bring water and you add also the canal, you start to bring more value in the deep of the land. So the client was really, really happy for this gesture. And then we create, of course, Benchmark Point, which is the hotel, the mall, the marina, and the tower. And then, of course, we connected with promenade, beaches, and so on. That one was 2 aerial view. As you can see how rich was the area. And definitely this one was really well received from the client. Again, this is a Riyadh. It's an office tower. The idea here was, the challenge we had was that basically the plot was split in 2 parts, and the client had a very huge amount of program to use it. We basically create an iconic tower next to the main road, and then we create a secondary tower on behind in order also to be gentle with the rest of the development, which was basically villa. The main idea of this one was to create a vertical wadi. As you can see, we have created a vertical garden across all the tower, which give a very nice response to the people in the office, as you understand, but also create an outstanding feature for the city of Riyadh. And then we created a very large and generous drop-off area, which I will show you now, which is basically that one. So the client was absolutely keen to have a grand entry. So we create this huge drop-off area with a kind of plaza situation, and then a beautiful garden, open from top. As you can see, the pattern of the facade, the language of the facade definitely recall the traditional pattern and graphic of the Saudi culture. Just quickly, this is the way we create basically the massing. We create a visual market. We extended the tower with amenities and main branch. We add the second tower, which is more related to the villas area, and then we cut with our vertical wadi, and then we create basically the grand entrance. And as you can see here, the beauty of this vertical garden, which you can appreciate also here. So that one, again, it's one of the moments where people can gather together, can stay together, also in a harsh climate like Saudi is, and also during office hours. So it's somehow the idea to have a workplace which is more like an open entertainment place rather than just an office space. That's another competition. We did it with Meras. It's basically the idea to rethink the entire D3 master plan. This is the current D3 piece of land, which you are all familiar. And the idea was to create a very large master plan mixed-use development across all the area. We have worked for several months on this competition. It was a huge challenge in order to manage all the density and leave also a very kind of open lifestyle for the canal and the promenade. That one is another competition. It's a sports stadium in Sharjah. again, the main idea was basically very similar to the one I described before. The idea was to create an interesting boulevard promenade, provide residence for sportmen and or for just normal people, and then the large stadium. So the idea was to basically to have the stadium working 24 hours and 7 days per week, and not just one time per week. We create this kind of plaza, we create a kind of opening. So we also design a kind of very interesting vertical promenade that basically connect related program, which can work also during the week and not during also the match day. So we have a restaurant, we have a museum, we have a conference hall. So basically the stadium, it works along all the week and not just during the match days. And also what was very interesting is to integrate to a sport facility a kind of residential area which will provide also more feedback to the stadium. This is another interesting project we did for Miras. I think it's under construction, but we were not the winners. But somehow it's a very interesting design. It's simple, but as you can see, we're integrated beautiful timber elements. We create like amazing balconies overlooking the urban park. This is a project we did in Al Ain. You might be familiar. This is the first UNESCO heritage for UAE. It's the beautiful oasis next to the museum in Al Ain, and has been asked to create a kind of eco resort. So the main idea here was basically to emphasize the connection and the proximity to the oasis, try to create a connection with the oasis and the existing Al Ain city, and then using basically our development in order to create a story, in order to create a journey. So the outcome was quite interesting. I would say we create a kind of green spine across the plot, and then we create a cultural spine on the other side where we have the Al Ain Museum, we have a market, we have a mosque, and we have a beautiful area with a grove. So basically the resort was a connection between nature and culture, and it works like a kind of ecosystem. This one was the drop-off entry area where we have a beautiful protection for the site. And on the other side, we have a beautiful grove where the car come and drop with this outstanding canopy, which welcome the people. That was inside, as you can see, has been treated like a beautiful oasis in order to promote this idea of heritage. That's a competition we did in Abu Dhabi. What it's interesting here about it's somehow what I have shown you before. We have two separate plots, and in the middle we had like a very traffic roads which connect to the mall in that area. So the idea here was to create a very large plaza and all the residential in a kind of half courtyard manner in order to promote the views and the life inside the plaza. So that one was the main concept. So massing, establish a big plaza, establish the pool overlooking the main plaza, and then basically having a beautiful garden on top. We won the competition. It was really, really well received by the client, and we do believe this is under development right now. As you can see, also the architecture is quite simple. It gave us a really sense of openness. We were allowed to promote a lot of glass on the facade, and the main idea again is to promote the life and the public space on the main plaza. This is a project under construction. It's a staff accommodation. What I found interesting, and this is the main reason I brought it to you, that basically we create a very interesting large plaza with amenities, which was canteen, pool, gym, all the facility for this staff accommodation. So that one was really the make public space. And then we create like simple semi-private courtyard where can people spend more time in a kind of semi-privacy. And then all the building were basically surrounded in order to create protection. So that's somehow the idea. We create courtyard, small courtyard, a large courtyard in the middle, the massing, the facility, and then the main building to protect basically the public space. We also create a kind of vertical courtyard, we call it. it's a basically majlis where people can during the night can just go here, having a tea, having a chat without going on the main courtyard, but still having a kind of public connection and communication with the rest of their neighborhoods. This is one of the aerial view. This is a huge mixed-use development in Cairo. We have been asked to basically to create a huge, very large retail development on the ground floor, and then 4 residential tower. We came out with this interesting idea of bridges in order to create another value for the tower. This bridge will be used by the tenants as a pool, as a facility, but also will be host to restaurant, which will provide a very high revenue for the client. So again, this is a really, I would say, typical commercial project where we really work together with the client in order to maximize the investment and the development from the client side. The idea was super simple in a way. Just one idea was to create a kind of visual connection between the city and the marina, to create a huge plaza in between the building in order to host festival and promoting public space, and then basically create a gate condition. And that's why the tower has this kind of symmetrical, perfect manner, because the idea was really to create like different gates and create a kind of benchmark, establish a kind of benchmark in the area. And this is a zoom of the Sky Bridge with the facility, gym, F&B, and so on. And on top, a kind of infinity pool with restaurant for residents and also for visitors. This is an healthcare city. Again, this is in Cairo. The challenge here was to put together kind of healthcare situation together with hospitality and residential. So what we did it, we basically, again, and this is the third time I'm saying, we create a kind of spine, green spine, and then we locate all the program around it in order to create a kind of privacy, because they are separated by this green spine. But on the other matter, we create a kind of very interesting public space, which is, as you understand so far, it's one of my big passion and challenge when I do design. As you can see here in this diagram, this is the green spine, which hand with a kind of agricultural farm. And then we have the labs with the healthcare center. And then we have the conference with the auditorium, residential area, and then museum connected to the labs. So if you like, I can show you quickly. I believe I'm this one. I think I'm exceeding my time. So let me do, last one is this one. That's very similar to what I have shown you before. It's a staff accommodation in Alula region in Saudi. So that staff accommodation will host the staff and the management for 4 resorts in the area. As you can see, the location, it's outstanding. There is basically nothing around, it's just a beautiful rocks formation. So that one was somewhat the challenge, designed with something using very, very simple and natural element in order to create the story in the in the plot in the journey. So we took the site boundary, and we noticed that there was a kind of natural shalal, a kind of small water river coming out from the mountain, which somehow create a beautiful curve and gesture inside our plot. So we studied the site, and then we decided to use basically this simple shalal, this channel of water, to define our master plan, and to use it again one more time as a green spine, as a boulevard in the master plan. In terms of formation, the client was absolutely keen to have a development which was really reacting to the traditional architectural language of Alula. We did a huge research, and we understood that the combination of a small scale with courtyard and small intimate public space together with nature was the key of the area. So we learned a lot, and we basically create two typologies. One for the staff accommodation, the other one was for the management, very similar. But the idea, again, one more time, was to create a kind of semi-private space in between the courtyard, and then rely all the public activity on the main spine and on the plaza. So those are the two typologies, the combination of the typologies. So basically every building has a kind of private courtyard where they can spend time, they can have, like kindergarten, playground, and so on. For this typology was a little bit more minimal because the density of those types was higher. And then, as you can see from the render, there was this beautiful green spine which across all the development, which is coming basically from the rock formation. And then plaza with the amenities, which was the canteen, sport facility, offices, and so on. So as you can see, the density, it's very close, but it's really react to the traditional Alula architecture and design. This is a zoom blow up of the green spine. It's a public space at the end. And again, what we like more, and the main idea was really to create a kind of public space where people can spend time, maybe during the weekend, or maybe when they have more time off from work. And then there is a small courtyard where they can spend maybe, just 1 hour during the evening to having a tea and then come back. At the end, this is a staff accommodation, so people are there for work. But we do believe that, again, there was an opportunity to promote interaction between people and public space. That's the other view. We have also sport facility, which has been located at the beginning of the site together with the gym. And then again, one more time, you can really see here the green spine, which ends in our main plaza. The idea here was to basically to exclude all the roads, keeping out from the main residential area, and having the entire residential area free from car, in order again to guarantee a kind of real identity of the area. Finally, this is a competition we did in Dubai. It's a residential tower. What I'm interested here to show you, it's basically how we achieve the shape. We did different diagram. We proceed in a very programmatic and methodology way. Also, the main idea here was to create a very iconic crown with this kind of interesting shape, and then having, again, on the ground floor, a kind of very open podium where to host gym, facility, and so on. So basically, the main idea was to create a kind of public space on the ground floor, and then a very exclusive area on the top floor. So that's it. I hope it was interesting, and please, thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer to all your questions now.
Thank you so much, Luca, for a very inspirational lecture, and also incredible array of projects, both in terms of competitions, built work, all the way through the detailing, all the way to from conceptual all the way to detailing. It's a very varied portfolio, and I compliment you on that. Thank you for sharing that with us. A couple of the questions that came through DM I also have one or two questions that I'm going to try to squeeze at the very end. Let's see here. I'm going to start with a slightly spicy one because I'm going chronologically. One of the questions that I got from a guest was, you have an extensive experience in different offices in terms of types, sizes, locations. Can you tell us the pros and cons of each? Maybe without naming them, but in terms of the size and the type of.
Let me be very open with you guys. So the pro are definitely the experience you learn, but not only in terms of design, but because you're gonna meet and you're gonna work with people from different worlds, different culture, different country, different way to understand architecture. I found myself many times talking with people with a completely different background of myself, higher sometimes, or people that have, you know, studying in school, which are like different school, and it was outstanding. So the way you learn, it's fantastic. And every single person, every single office, I know it looks like a cliche, it gives you something absolutely critical on your next step. Every time I did a step in my career, I was thinking already the next after, because it's always, you know, it's always growing. We never stop to learn architecture. You know, I have 70 years old and I feel, you know, like, boo. I'm not really sure I know architecture, right? I'm still trying to understand if this is the way to do it. The pro, it's also because you're traveling across the world, right? So living in a different city, I live in Dubai, I lived in Rotterdam, in Vienna, in Rome. So it was amazing, again, for several reasons. The cons come late in the age when you're gonna start to have a family. So if you have kids, if you have wife, you need to move everybody around, which again, a huge value, to be honest, but it's not easy. The cons also that, and this is also like criticize myself, I don't have a very strong identity myself, because I learn from different offices, right? So I know about OMA, I know about Fuchsias, I know about RMJM. So I'm taking all of that and I'm putting it together under my name. But is it really Luca Vigliero, or it's, you know, it's an hybrid, which is maybe interesting or maybe not. I don't know yet. That's what I'm saying. I'm still learning. But pro are definitely here, you know, and cons are here. So I would recommend you, in my opinion, again, go outside, learn as much as possible. And then there is a moment in your life you're gonna probably settle, you're gonna put your foundation, and you're gonna stay there for more years. But at the beginning, I recommend you guys to stay hungry, to stay foolish, as the famous sentence.
Yes, Steve Jobs, yes. It's funny also because a lot of the comments that you made, I'm hoping that my students paid attention. It feels like you were saying words that I was saying, and this was not rehearsed, just to tell my students in terms of the importance of traveling, of gaining exposure, of researching different mediums, such as art, history, film. You never know where inspiration might come from. One thing that what strikes me about you, Luca, is that every time we speak regularly on the phone, every time you tell me that you have a new project that you're working on, you're approaching it like when we were students. You're like, we got this amazing site. I'm researching about the background of this specific part of the world, this country, etc. The client might want this, so on and so forth. If I may add also, I think one of the cons that you mentioned actually is a strength in your case, which is the absence of style. You don't have in the varied portfolio that you have, no one can say, if they were to have you as a critic, or by the way, spoiler alert, some of my students will have you as a critic on Sunday for the final reviews of Studio 7. They don't know what style you gravitate towards, because you value the idea first. The idea is so important in the formation of the idea and the development of the idea, that it becomes, in a way, what formulates the building. You never talk about how the building looks like until it's the very end, like in a rendering or in a perspective. It's never a starting point, it's an ending point. Literally, the diagram becomes the building in terms of the strength of the idea. So I highly appreciate that. Why don't we go through
it's a really good point, Mo.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, and I'm really proud of that in a way. I'm not really interested, which is funny for a designer, especially in a company like KO, how the building will look at the end. I'm interested to understand the journey to achieve that shape, this design. So that's what makes me more interesting about it. It's about the story rather than the final conclusion. I'm not interested about the end,
Right. Yeah, it's the process. Yeah. Just because we have to be careful with time, I'll try to be as quick as possible. This one might be shorter, but I might want to add also myself something to it. You mentioned it's not a good idea to do a lot of competitions. Can you please elaborate on this? Why is that the case for you?
Well, it's a matter of what there is one. Okay, one comment could be because you never sleep. So you are constantly under pressure. And at the beginning, it's fun, but on a long go, it's not easy to manage. And listen, I feel old to say that, but in a really long go, working constantly under pressure, under deadline, don't sleep in the night. And guys, let's be frankly, this is going to be your probably your career for the next year, because you're going to put under a lot of energy in your work. So you're going to work really hard. It's not really healthy on a long go. And I'm telling you, because pushing the edge constantly is going to be completely unhealthy. And you won't be a good designer. You're going to just go down and down and down because you're going to be exhausted at one point. The worst experience, which was also my best experience, was OMA. OMA was like amazing, but it was like incredible art because you work 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, 365 days per year. So that's why competition, it's really complicated because it's short, it's a challenge, and especially if you work in a corporate and usually competition are not well paid or not paid, the time you allowed to spend on competition is so little because otherwise the company will lose money with you. So they're gonna ask you, and I do unfortunately with my team, to squeeze the competition maybe in 1 week, in 2 weeks, which you usually take 3 or 4 weeks, and then this is gonna be very painful. On the other side, doing competition is amazing because your portfolio will be outstanding. You're gonna have the best render, the best model, the best diagram. So again, at the beginning, competition are great. When you move forward, let's be careful also because competition, you see just 2 weeks of the project. At one point, you need to move forward. Schematic design, detail design, construction, you have to learn about all the process. And then at one point, in my opinion, around 5 years of experience, you start to decide what to do. I want to be the designer. I want to be the project manager. I want to be the production guy. I want to be the whatever. So, but before you need to have the entire spectrum of our work. Otherwise, you're going to lose part of those.
I'm particularly fond of competitions because I've noticed in publications, when they publish, for example, the different entries, it gives you a very intimate insight of the thinking process of an architect or a firm because of the constraint of time and the constraint of resources. I always found sometimes some of the competition entries are more interesting than the actual buildings, as we've seen with as we will see with some of the alluded projects that you had, in terms of subtly saying, look at Google Maps and let's see how what they decided to build in some of the projects. Let's do one more, just because of time. I'm warning you, you have a very I'm sure very thankful audience, but also very attentive audience. So one of the questions Dana asks, how did you tackle sustainability issues that come with using a lot of glazing in a hot climate?
That's a good question. It makes me in a very worry. Okay, let me think about which project are you referring, or generally speaking, right? Well, listen, let me
I think she was referring to the tower, one of the last projects.
Okay, listen,
that's one that comes into mind.
It's true, it's not sustainable, but first of all, nowadays, there is a lot of glasses, there is a lot of there is a lot of way to be sustainable also working with glasses. But that's not the point. The point is how you basically, and if you refer to a tower or some development, how you place your tower or how you place your development. And this is come from the context. So when I start a project, the first things I do, it's about context. And I'm not referring only to the environment. I'm talking about, and Mo was mentioning before, about culture, about uses, about people, about random stuff that happens, you know, in that site for some reason. So all of that will be the sustainability. Watch out, guys. And again, this is my opinion. There is a lot of greenwash in our business. It's huge. And we have to be careful. Sustainability, it's absolutely outstanding. It's super important in the future. It's probably the element that you're gonna use in the future, but watch out because there is a lot of greenwash. So glass, it could be not sustainable, but most of the time it could be. And to be honest with you, especially in residential, you need to provide openness. You need to provide light. You need to provide a sense of, you know, connection with the city. So that's really important when you work with residential. I agree with you. There is other projects that you can minimize. For example, museum, cultural building, you can minimize. You can work with darkness. That's fine. But there is some program, some real estate that you have to work smartly with glass. It means working with your context.
Wonderful. Great. Just to answer one of the questions, I'll answer one of the questions of the audience. Safe ask, is this webinar going to be recorded and sent to us? Yes, it will be available on the YouTube channel of the Center of Research and Innovation Design shortly. We will send, Luca, I'll definitely send you the link once we have it up and running so that you can show it to your colleagues and friends. I think that's mostly it from our end. If I can make one quick remark of a story just for everyone to understand, this is Luca's second life, let's say, in Dubai.
Yeah, true.
Because it's not like he's been here 10 years. He was I met him in Dubai about 10, 11 years ago. He moved back to Italy and then moved back to Dubai. I remember I actually drove you, and Irene, your wife, and Pietro, who was just born. I noticed that you put it in the diagram, the timeline, the birth of your first child, on the way to the airport. Not just did I get 2 speeding tickets. Anyways, it's a long story. Everyone who knows me driving knows that I'm very careful. It's just that it's one of those small roads that you don't know that the 60 is the limit and you're going 81. And it was raining also, if you remember. But I remember on the way to the airport, I was like, this guy's coming back. This guy is so adaptive. He's so inventive. He's coming back here if he wants to. And lo and behold, you were back before I knew it.
Yeah,
so kudos to you.
It was, and to be honest, for a long time, I thought it was a mistake to leave Dubai. But at the end, those 5 years in Europe established again my career. So randomly, just because it was a need to move, I found something interesting. So don't be scared if sometimes something happens, you need to move in another place. There is always something to learn, and there is always time to come back. The world now, it's really open. It's really open. So it's a completely different, your generation is completely different from mine in a way, which is probably the first generation that left home in a proper way, in a very aggressive way for needs almost.
Great, thank you. George, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I just would like to maybe one quick thing. Luca, first, thank you so much for this really amazing and very informative presentation. You know, the way that you explained every concept was really inspirational. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you inspired everyone here and listening. I just have one thing. What would you say the audience has to take away? You know, with your extensive experience, what would you tell them as a final thing that we can all take away with?
I do believe if you want to be a designer, and you can also not be a designer, right? Because you could also do something else in architecture. There is so much we can do it. If you want to be a designer, you have to be dedicated. You have to dedicate part of your life, and I'm not joking. So it's dedication, traveling a lot, Don't be scared about changing, moving, at least for the first 10 years, I would say. Be really hungry in a way. I know it looks stupid, but stay hungry, stay foolish, which is actually not a Steve Jobs sentence. This has come earlier and earlier. It was basically a sentence at the end of a book, which was basically the father of internet. So it's an amazing story, guys. I would suggest you to go and dig in this stay hungry, stay foolish, because behind that lecture, there is a beautiful word, which I really fall in love for almost 2 years. Anyway, so again, guys, just be curious, do research, don't do architecture in a very light way. So you really need to dig inside. Forget about SketchUp, forget about Rhino. It's not that. Those are the tools, and you are great. I see the guys coming here. They're amazing, amazing. Go beyond that. Just look architecture in a more deep way, because we define life, guys. I mean, we really working with people, and we deserve a different approach. I hope this one was enough smart, guys.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Luca. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of the
Thank
day.
you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, George. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.